Hello people, today we're in Eastham on southeast Wirral with much to explore. The 1700-year-old yew tree, North-Saxon tales, Norman ales, medieval monk's ferry, the powerful Stanley family, the Victorian pleasure garden where I'll be sleeping tonight. Why don't you sit down and chill out for a bit and let me regale you with a few tales. Eastham sits in the southeast, on the south bank of the River Mersey. Earliest records date back to Anglo-Saxon times, visited several times by Athelfled, Lady of Mercia and daughter of Alfred the Great. The Norse arrived in 902 and a North-Saxon border was soon established, from Beverton in the east to Ness in the west. This did little to deter the Viking raids regularly launched from the Wirral into Saxon lands. Eastham sat just south of the border and was garrisoned as part of the first line of defence and owned by the Saxon Earl of Mercia for centuries. Ingerman's people found the new Wirral homes marshy and rocky, with murky waters and sandy hills, not arable. They cast envious eyes south onto the fertile plains of Cheshire. At the time, Chester was said to be an abandoned city in northern Mercia. The Norse seen it as a potential link between the Viking kingdoms of Biflin in Ireland and Jorvik in Northumbria. And in 907, using the Wirral as a staging ground, Ingerman's forces launched an attack on Chester. With Athelred Lord of the Mercians on his deathbed, the Norse expected little resistance. A close fought battle ensued in open fields before the Mercians retreated inside the city walls. The Norse gave chase, thinking they had the upper hand, but it was a trap. A large force of mounted Saxon knights charged from the city to meet them. It was a rout. The Norse suffered great slaughter as they fled the field of battle, and in the aftermath many Wirral Gaels abandoned Ingerman and joined forces with Mercia. The Wirral was fortified soon thereafter, with a fort at Brunanburh and lookouts on both the Dee and the Mersey, with garrisons stationed at Eastham and Burton. The Wirral was used as a staging ground by invading forces like this several times over the next century. When William the Conqueror took England in 1066, he created several earldoms to help govern his kingdom. One of those was the earldom of Chester, and in 1072 Edwin, the last Saxon Earl of Mercia, died. The majority of his lands, including the manor of Eastham, were gifted to the second Norman Earl of Chester, Hugh de Branch, also known as Hugh Lupus. Listed as Eastham in the Domesday Book of 1086, Middle English for Eastern Homestead, derived from the settlement's location to the east of the Wirral's ancient capital, Willaveston. several farmsteads, a windmill and a quarry. In the 1120s, Alan Sylvester became Master Forester of Whittle. The manor of Eastham eventually came with the title. His duties included collecting taxes, maintaining law and order across the Whittle, at a time when poaching was punishable by amputating the bow fingers on your main hand. Alan was duty bound to travel to Chester at the end of every tax period, where he'd blow a ceremonial horn known as the Whittle horn, also blown to open feasts and fairs. The horn's over 900 years old, still in existence, held captive down in Somerset by someone who inherited the title of Master Forester of Whittle. I do hope that it'll be retained to its rightful home on the Whittle one day. At the time, Chester was onto its fourth earl, an Anglo-Norman baron named Ranulph de Guernon, born in France with the blood of Mercian earls. And Ranulph was found guilty of damaging Christian property in Cheshire and was forced to pay compensation to the Abbey of St Werburgh. In 1152, Earl Ranulph gifted the manor of Eastham to the monks of St Werburgh, a wattle and daub chapel on a hill next to an ancient yew tree. The chapel was replaced with a church built from local sandstone, and the village then grew around the churchyard. In the late 1100s, monks opened a ferry across the Mersey. It was known as Job's Ferry, over a wooded hillside, down narrow sandstone steps, onto an elevated jetty. It became an important link between Chester and Liverpool, being a lot closer to Chester than the older ferry in Birkenhead. Crossings were made in paddle boats and took hours depending on river conditions. In 1282, William de Stanley married Joan Bourneville, a descendant of Alan Sylvester, and they inherited his Whittle lands. The Stanleys increased their Whittle holdings through marriage several times, and they owned Eastham for centuries. Other family held titles included King of Man and Lord Lieutenant of Ireland. In the 1500s, the ferry moved south to an area with better land access and a natural sandstone pier. The crossing was 2 miles wide, made in tall-masted sailboats. The Stanleys owned the ferry at this point, and it prospered for centuries, with up to 40 coaches a day unloading at Eastham Ferry in its prime. Daniel Defoe, author of Robinson Crusoe, wrote a book in the 1720s titled A Tour Through the Whole Island of Great Britain, and in it he had this to say about Eastham. This narrow strip of land, rich, fertile, full of inhabitants, is called Wirral, or by some Wirral. Here is a ferry over the Mersey, which at full sea is more than 2 miles over. You land on the flat shore on the other side, and must be content to ride through the water for some length, not on horseback, but on the shoulders of some Lancashire man, who comes knee deep to the boat's side to truss one up. The new Chester Road was completed in the 1830s, cutting travel time between Birkenhead and Chester in half. With its much shorter river crossing, Birkenhead's Woodside Ferry became the popular ferry of choice once more. And in the 1840s, the Birkenhead to Chester Railway opened, and Eastham Ferry fell into decline. Ferry owner Sir William Massey Stanley built the Eastham Ferry Hotel in a final attempt to entice new visitors to the area, but it didn't work, and in 1847 he sold the ferry, the hotel and surrounding woodland to Liverpudlian merchant Richard Naylor. Naylor had plans to regenerate the area. He opened the Eastham Ferry Gardens, making use of surrounding woodland. There was an aviary, a ballroom, a bandstand, a boating lake, a fairground and a tea room. The gardens were a success. Eastham was a popular destination once again. There was a menagerie and a zoological garden with many exotic animals. Elephants, lions, monkeys, tigers and wolves, some given freedom to roam. Visitors were often seen running screaming from the gardens, traumatised by the animals they'd encountered in the woods. Two dilapidated Victorian fountains sit on the hillside, built in the mid-1800s, still here over 150 years later. This one was discovered by chance in 2006. It was fully uncovered by volunteers in 2007. Who knows what else remains buried on this hillside here? Why aren't these fountains plumbed in? Imagine the scenes. Two Victorian fountains cascading water on a wooded Wirral riverside. I wonder how the council justify this one. Deep in the woods hides the bear pit, 15 foot deep, home to Brune, the European brown bear, in the late 1800s, a Victorian attraction. Brune stood 7 foot tall and weighed almost 200 kg. He held celebrity status on the Wirral, and he'll remain a legend in these parts. I don't know as much as I should, but I think that tree there is an oak tree. And if you look around, there's a lot of them. That one. Another one over there. Another one's down there. And I think, right now, whatever they are, I think they're oaks. I'm in the midst of an oak grove. And this is where I'm going to be sleeping tonight, somewhere in this area. All we need is a flat parcel of ground, free from debris. Now, what do we think about this area? You used to pass under a strike and jubilee arch here into the gardens, constructed in Liverpool in 1897 to commemorate Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee during her visit to the city. After the fuss had died down, the arch was bought on the cheap and then carefully ferried across to Eastham. It contained plaques commemorating battles won during Victoria's reign, with small cherubs holding scrolls and statues of the Queen on both sides. It was deemed unsafe by Cheshire County Council in 1930. They demolished it, then reversed the decision and said it had actually been safe. One account tells of a fairground ride brought to Eastham in 1909, named the Flip Flap, with a top speed of 98 miles per hour and only a bar to hold on. People would often fall out as it went upside down. When it opened, it was said that many people left here injured. It ended up sitting idle for a long period before it was eventually dismantled. Queen Victoria opened the Manchester Ship Canal in 1894, expecting it to bring new prosperity to Eastham, but it made little difference. The final nail came in the 1920s for Eastham, with the opening of the Queensway and Kingsway tunnels, which linked the Wirral by road to Liverpool via Wallasey and Birkenhead. The gardens became common, seedy and not for families. The last ferry crossing took place in 1929 and Eastham Ferry Gardens closed that same year. Eastham Ferry Pier was then dismantled in the early 1930s. There was once an exquisite Victorian mansion here named Carlet Park, commissioned by Liverpudlian merchant John Torr around 1860. I found this description online. This was a two-storey house of red brick with stone dressings. Like much of Wyatt's work, it was stylistically confused and lacked visual coherence. Loosely Tudor in style, it had a three-storey tower with a French pavilion roof above the entrance. On the garden front there was another flat-roofed tower with shaped Dutch gables, set against it with a first-floor oriel window. A veranda and conservatory were attached to one side and a lower service wing to the other. Cheshire County Council acquired the estate after the Second World War. They demolished the original hall in 1971. The only period building still here is this chapel, named the Chapel of the Good Shepherd. On the other side of the hill sits Eastham Country Park proper, a rare ancient woodland, a maze of criss-crossing paths, over 100 acres of land, one of the largest woodlands on the Wirral. There's said to be an oak tree in these woods that's over 500 years old. Morning.
You've got the gear to capture them.
Trying, it's just my phone.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
If I take a picture with my phone, it can just come out. What's that?
Yeah, I know. We can only try, can't we? Yeah. Beautiful though, isn't it?
And you can actually smell them as well.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Excuse me, do you know where, are you local to here?
Yeah, fairly local.
Apparently there's a 500-year-old oak tree in these woods. I don't suppose. I've been walking around for a while, I'm just getting confused now, like forgetting what barks, what tree and stuff, you know.
You'd have to ask at the rangers.
Yeah.
Place.
Yeah.
They might know.
Yeah. I will do, I'll head down that way in a bit then.
Sorry.
It's alright, no worries, it's a bit of an odd question, eh? Shouldn't we all, eh? See you later. St Mary's Church is a magnificent building and one of the most impressive religious sites on the Wirral. Likely the second oldest building, just a few decades younger than Birkenhead Priory. Masonry in the north wall dates back to the 1100s. The nave was added in the 1200s, a Norman tower in the 1300s, the aisle in the 1400s, and the south porch in the 1500s. During the Victorian restoration of the 1870s, the church was restored in a Gothic revival style by Liverpudlian architect David Walker. The tower contains a circular Norman font from the 1100s. There's also a 3 metre long oaken parish chest, which dates back to the 1500s. The Grade 2 listed sundial dates back to 1798. The Grade 2 listed village cross dates back to 1891. There's also this war memorial made from bronze and limestone in the 1920s in memory of the local heroes who were lost in the First and Second World Wars. There are 66 names with 16 war graves in the cemetery. I did want to show you the oldest grave here, which dates back to 1612, but many of these older ones like this, you just can't even read them, so I've been wandering around for a bit and I give up, but I'll tell you the story anyway. The oldest grave is from 1612, and it reads, William Stanley of Houghton was buried here, the 4th of January, the year of our Lord God, 1612. Death rests in the end. His wife Anne Herbert, and left by her living one son and 6 daughters. Death miseries. The Stanleys held a massive influence here. There's a Stanley chapel inside the church, with 2 altar tombs and many other memorials for family members. It's also said that the Stanley servants are buried in this graveyard. 2 in particular stand out, one who worked for them for 60 years and one who worked for them for 80 years. The Stag of Stanley also sits proud on the front wall of the Montgomery Public House. Jane McIntyre lays in the ground here, 26 years old when she died, baptised in this church in 1859 and brutally murdered at her home in Rock Ferry in February 1886. The cause of death listed as concussion of the brain, feloniously caused. It's said that Jane disagreed with her sister's relationship with an older man. This man was seen drinking all day in Birkenhead and then visiting Jane's house on the evening of her murder. He was convicted of the crime and then exonerated. With no other suspects, Jane's killer escaped justice. A very sad tale. Is it possible for such a soul to find peace? I hope so. A truly ancient tree, referred to as ye old yew in the 1100s, estimated to be over 1700 years old. A sapling when the Whittle was home to the Celtic Druidic Cornavide tribe, when a stone circle stood in Overchurch, when St. Patrick dipped his toes in the Dibben, this tree was fully grown. Yews are associated with Druidic sites of worship. To the Celts, yews were sacred trees, symbolic of death and resurrection. Replanted in its current position in Saxon times, often found on ancient Christial burial grounds. It's said the poisonous fruit of the yew would keep grazing animals away from fresh graves. Fenced in centuries ago after several malicious attempts to fell it. I don't get why this tree isn't a bigger attraction. Not many people even know that it exists.
Last glad day is gone, and the sun goes down, but we muse all alone. And the sun goes down, but the heart is not so light when the day is taking flight, and we feel the coming night as the sun goes down. The heart is not so light when the day is taking flight, and we feel the coming night as the sun goes down.
There is also an Eastham Hall of unknown age, privated off today, rented out as commercial rooms. Apparently, not that long ago, part of the ground floor had to be closed off because there was a well found directly underneath the floor. A witness said that you couldn't see the bottom of the well. It's claimed that there was an underground tunnel that ran underneath Stanley Lane from the church to the Montgomery Public House. We're talking medieval, centuries old. I couldn't tell you what it was used for or whether it's still there. Here we are on Plymyard Avenue with a disturbing story to tell. Stumbled upon it online and it goes like this. There was a farm on Plymyard Ave where the Argyle and Sutherland pub now stands, named Slack's Farm. It was fairly large in size. In the 1940s, a mother took her eyes off her infant daughter for a few moments and the little girl climbed into the pig enclosure. It was too late by the time anyone realised, as the pigs had begun to eat the child. The man who told this tale said that he was there when it happened, and he said that he was still haunted by the screams of the mother. Rivica Road is a secluded back road that runs from Eastham right the way down to Ellesmere Port, and it's said to be haunted by a ghost rider, often encountered after dark, with many witness accounts. A young couple had to be towed out of a ditch. They were shook up and insisted that they'd been in a head-on collision with another car, but there was no other car. Another time, a mother and daughter seen a car crash off-road onto adjacent farmland. Emergency services arrived, but there was no car at the crash site. A local man claims to have ran something big over here early in the morning when he was travelling to work. and a figure unexpectedly ran out into the road. He stopped and got out to investigate, expecting the worst. There was nothing there. I did find a legend from the 1700s which tells of shadow figures here on Ferry Road. Lost souls roaming the tree-lined lane, accosting the living. Lone travellers were encouraged to stay away from the area at night. Did consider camping here at Job's Ferry. When I came down to scout it out one night, when I went back up, there was people sat on the benches at the top. Put me right off, with only one way in and out. There's been UFO sightings here. Mysterious lights over the Mersey, beams of light shining down through the forest canopy. 2 dog walkers claim to have encountered a blindingly bright light in the woods. They say that it was scanning the area before it flew out over the Mersey at an unnatural speed, where it disappeared. Walking in these woods one night, I heard voices, male and female, very close. I expected people to appear on the path heading south, but then the voices changed direction and came from the north. They were carried on the wind. Couldn't make out any words. Something wasn't right about the way they continually changed direction. Were they disembodied? I thought about the Battle of Brunanburh, which happened not far from here, and the hairs stood on the back of my neck. Locals talk of hooded figures in the woods at night. One witness said they had red eyes. Another claims they pursued him several miles up the A41. I don't know what they're up to. I do know there's a pagan moot based not far from here. But from what I've uncovered, I'd say the group here has a lot in common with the satanic gatherings of Eastham Hill. home for the night in the midst of an oak grove, a flat parcel of Eastham soil. Just a small ground sheet and a British Army bivvy tonight. This is just one of them woodlands full of bugs. I feel quite on edge here tonight. There's a lot of constant animal noise. And I was sat uphill before at the benches, and I heard a noise like something big was coming through the undergrowth. But when I shined my torch, there was nothing there. And I was sat off down by the big fountain before, and I thought there was a figure in the woods, but it was just a tree with a really dark trunk. It freaked me out. I just tried to get in my bivvy with me. Sleeping under a centuries old oak tree. Not bad. Just make out the sky from camp. Was a nice moon, but it's too low in the sky to be able to see it from here. But as you can see, it's pitch black. I'm knackered, me, you know. I think I'm gonna get my head down for a few hours. I'll be back with you before too long. Sound. Oh. Just been woken up by loud laughter. It's pitch black in here, but it sounded really close. Don't know if I was dreaming or when I woke up it didn't stop. Shoot me up that. Just gonna sit and listen for a bit now. It starts coming light in like 2 hours. Too much noise around here as well, freaking me out. I've just walked right down to the Eastham Ferry Hotel, lit the whole woodlands up with my torch. There's no one else about, so I'm gonna go back up and try and get my head down for a couple of hours. Survived, didn't we? Must have had about 3 hours sleep, like. Whew. Eastham. One more enchanted place ticked off the list. Thanks for joining me. We'll be heading 8 miles northwest for the next instalment. Look after yourself, and I'll see you then.